And hello everyone, welcome to another nearly perfect launch to another nearly perfect live stream. You've reached the ComicBase live stream. This is ComicBase live stream number 76, our New Year's Eve kickoff for 2022. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. I am the creator of ComicBase and I dabble in a few other things, but let's get going. Everyone welcome. Hello Oro, and everyone who joined early last week and didn't know that we were on hiatus. Apologize for that, but I'm glad you guys could make it here today. Today we are going to be covering a little bit of future news for us, talking about a few of our projects we've been getting up to over the break, as well as some things that we're working on the first, just initial weeks of the year. Not going to get too much into like big time future plans right now, but it's more like a kind of like a bring folks up to speed on what we've been up to. Also want to handle your questions, so please ask them in the chat, and if you could put @ComicBase TV when you do the chat, and that way it pops out of the stream and makes it a little easier for me to see what's going on. And we'll hit as many of those as we possibly can. Anyway, so let me go ahead and just do a quick refresh. And hey, Andre, everyone can join us. What we're going. Oh, also, before I get too far into it and forget the all important, do please like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we post new things. We are intending to put up more tutorial content, especially this year, talking about new features or things that we have in the works. So that will be. It'll be aside from the regular podcast here, the regular live stream. And so go ahead and hit that bell so you'll get notified when we post new things there, and we'll also try to post them up on the board and the Facebook groups and so forth as we go. All right, so let's see here. First item of business. So ComicBase 22.0.1 is coming. Right now you guys are all on 22.0. What's the current build here? Let me check it on here. 22.0.1452. That's the latest little incremental build of ComicBase. We publish, as you guys might know, we publish new builds of the software pretty much continuously. And if you go in ComicBase and you say under setup, if you have it checked to show your preliminary releases as you check for updates, you'll see all the little futzy things we do as we go. But we only push one major update per quarter. 22.0.1 is going to be our first quarter release of the software, and we're hoping to get that one launched inside of, well, hopefully by the time we talk next week. It has a surprisingly small number of bug fixes in it. This was one of the quietest launches we probably ever had for the software in terms of the inevitable things that you need to find and fix later. Thank you, testers. That's I'm going to give you guys all the credit for that one. You guys did a great job of finding things before they hit the general audience. But anyway, thanks once again. We have not had that many little kind of emergency bits come along, but we do have other things that come along as we go. For instance, there have been magazines submitted that had variations in excess of 26, so we couldn't just treat them as variant A through Z. So just like with comic books, we had to add V27 through 150 to the magazine category. Just recently, we got a submission for a comic book with the comic type fall. Apparently, we had spring, we had summer, we had holiday, we had Christmas. We did not have fall. That had just never come up before. But it's happened now. So anyway, all those things are being created when you download 22.0.1, or frankly, if you download the very latest version of the interim software, those will get automatically added to your database so that when you download updates with them, the variation will make some kind of sense. It won't just say V27 with no explanation. It'll actually spell it out a little bit more. There were some fixes for like clipped off buttons on certain people's screens in the print dialogue. If you had a very small screen, that could hit you. But we hit a few things like that, but really nothing too serious on that one. The other really big news about 22.0.1 is we're shipping them with refreshed database and refreshed picture packages. So the total counts on that one are 972,168 comics in the database, and over 100,000 books and magazines are now part of the stock database as we go. We are pushing ever closer to that million comic mark, and I'll be excited to see when we finally hit that. I have the feeling it's going to require having somebody help us index some long forgotten Portuguese comic title that ran 5,000 issues or something, because at this point there's just not, we're starting to have pretty darn good coverage even on the international stuff, but yeah, we're getting there, and it's I'm stunned by how much content we're dealing with on a weekly basis. We came in just last weekend, we had cleared corrections down to 0 when everyone left for Friday. We're like, hey, great, have a great weekend, we'll see everyone then. We walked in Monday morning with just 21,000 new submissions, and it's like, good grief, what happened? But thank you to everyone who's doing all the submitting on that, and thank you for our editors for not turning into chronic alcoholics while trying to process all this. So it's team effort, but we're getting through it. So anyway, other things that are happening. We are up to 794,713 images on the picture discs. Those are going to be refreshed, and we'll also be putting reposted picture archives up on the servers. Wait for a week or so before you download those ones. Number one, because they're not up yet. Number two, because let's face it, don't raid the servers all at once to hit the disk images if you feel like you need to download those, because it's really just going to be murder on our servers. So anyway, and honestly, there's really very little need to run and get that stuff as long as you've had Sidekick downloading things on a weekly basis. You're already there. But one thing we also do every quarter is we clean out the picture archives, so that if there are any issues that, for instance, had a picture listed under one designation, but the designation of the issue or the title or the publisher has changed, and so they're orphaned, we flush all those out of the library every quarter or so, and so we get kind of a clean thing. So the 794,000 is the number of absolute tied to images in there. No orphans, no miscellaneous things in there, and so hope you guys enjoy them. That is a tremendous amount of content. Try not to say quite as many bad words this year. Anyway, so other things that are going on in life. By the way, I want to say hey to Greg and Xanadu Comics, Steve, thanks for joining, Richard Scott, and so yeah. Oh my goodness, that so Greg shares, so this happened last week. Girlfriend, your phone just played a Spider-Man song again. Me. That means another Atomic Avenue order came in. AA is still hopping even after Xmas is over. I gotta figure out how to make my phone make cool sounds when ComicBase stuff comes in. I guess if you tie the message to the sender, you could do that, but I've not gotten around to doing that with my new phone. It's almost one of the reasons I would want to see an Atomic Avenue app, is just so we can associate cha-ching sounds or something like that when orders come in. But PayPal app used to do that, and I miss it greatly. But so it goes. Let's see what else is going on. Xanadu Comics, I'm not sure if your question is meant for me. If it is, go ahead and please type it at ComicBase TV, and I will attempt to answer it as we go. All right, so pressing on. Barcode scanner situation. A lot of people asked us about where we stand on barcode scanners, because as you guys know, we have been sold out for a while. We are working with our current vendor to see what can be done to get more. Beyond that, we're also trying to kind of upgrade, what we're doing. I very much would like to see a wireless solution, at least as an option in scanners. It's not always something that's critical, but the world is getting more wireless as we go. I've switched finally after all these years to a wireless mouse, and keyboard for laptops and things like that. And honestly, not having the clutter, or not pulling on the barcode scanner and having it snake over and knock your phone off the hook and all the other things that are going on. There's a lot to be said for that. The problem we're having is I have a large number of scanners that we've been we've been checking out samples from different vendors that are not passing testing. They are perfectly good for scanning random items that you might throw at it from like a hardware store or whatever else, but for periodicals in particular, they use a code called EAN13 +2 and +5 is the supplemental. It's the small digits at the right hand side of the barcode, and pretty much our standard for accepting is that we either can force the scan to have that it doesn't treat the scan as complete unless it sees that supplemental. Because if you guys look at a barcode on a comic book, you'll see that the last 5 digits on it, the first 3 of those are actually the issue number. The digit after that is the variation, and the digit after that's meant to be the printing list. That's how you're meant to use it. You don't have to, but really key information is in that last 5 digits, and if you don't have it, honestly, the best we could ever tell is what title you're on. We could never tell you what issue you're looking at. So the problem we're getting, though, is because in the barcode standard, it's used for comic books, either you call it UPCA or you call it EAN 13, it's considered valid whether it sees the supplemental or not. Problem is, if in our world of comic books, if it doesn't see that supplemental, it's a misscan. And we don't want to have you just sitting there, scanning the comic book again and again and again and having it beep at you and not give you the comic. We want that to be a one scan, one shot, pulls up the comic kind of experience. And it's amazing how hard it is to find a vendor that either can, our requirements for them are you either hit it 97% plus of the time that you get the whole code on the first scan, or that you can force it to not be treated as valid scan until it sees the supplemental. We would take either one, and I have probably a dozen or more barcode scanners just in a pile, in the discard pile, because they weren't able to pass testing after initial vendor qualification, after they've come out multiple times and swore, oh no, there's no problem at all. Absolutely, we'll send you samples. You'll be so pleased, and it's like, nope, not again. So we are trying to find a solution on that one. We, like I say, we are trying to go forward. So I don't. We do know how to get at least some scanners that we had, like exactly the type we had before, but we're really trying to get a wireless one into the mix. But honestly, if we haven't figured a way to move forward with a wireless solution in the next 30 days through another vendor, then we're just probably going to beg our current guys to say, yeah, okay, let's just get some more supply going in, because there's no chance to switch over. So that's kind of where we're at on that one. Apologize that we don't have better news for folks right now, but it'll be resolved in 30 days one way or another. So hang in there. We'll take care of it. All right, so let me check where we are else. Okay, looks like we're good on the chat. So one thing I've learned over the year or so of doing this stuff is if you don't check the chat every couple seconds, that'll be when you find out that either your video's frozen or your mic's turned off or something crazy like that. So I want to make sure I get that little twitchy habit down. All right, moving on. Other things we are doing. We are getting new servers spun up. So on the back end, over here at Human Computer Central, we have mail servers, we have database servers, we have web servers, and we are getting an upgrade to a whole bunch of them across the line. The servers are built. They've got OSs installed. They get past basic testing and configuration, and now we got to cut over to them. And when we do, there will be a little bit of downtime involved. We're hoping to keep the window pretty tight. Because when the system's down, you can't check for updates. You can't do a lot of things. You can use ComicBase by itself, but anything that involves the web obviously isn't going to happen. So it'll probably be something that happens in the middle of the night. We will try to give folks as much heads up as possible when that happens, and hopefully it'll be a matter of just an hour or two. But whenever you're talking about a big upgrade, things like this, things can happen, and it might be a few hours in order to get things switched over. But anyway, when we do, we expect to have pretty significantly improved speed on web and database searches, in particular on the whole thing. And the other thing is that when we're building our servers this time out, having learned the hard way from the one time a few months ago when we had a hardware failure, we're building everything as duplicates. So in other words, whenever we're staging a server to do anything, we've got another one standing by that's exactly like it. It's just waiting to take over its place so that we can just spin it up and get ready to rock as we go. It's at least, when you're staging large amounts of servers, or at least want them to be very, very reliable, your friend is redundancy, and so we've really taken that lesson to heart. And so whatever we're doing times 2 or 4 or some multiple as we go going forward. So we're hoping that adds up to a better experience for everyone out there. Another thing that's happening, probably we're going to wait about a week after we stand the new servers up, is we're also replacing our firewall hardware on the back end over here. Our firewall has been doing a lovely job. I've been watching as it has been repelling attackers day and night ever since we first got it going up there. You know, one thing that we did, we reduced our attack space significantly when we cut off support for the older protocols used with ComicBase 2017 and below. By the way, thank you everyone who took the upgrade advice to heart and you know, and got your stuff moved forward too, because it, you know, it really was a huge load off of our minds when we're sitting there. You know, we're watching just these auto-generated attacks just hitting the site just day and night, you know, using the old protocols. They were never going to get anywhere, but man, did they waste a lot of time. It's just a huge load off to see, you know, us be able to just turn off that attack space and just see all that stuff, all that traffic go away. So anyway, that has been a good thing for us. But moving forward, another thing that we've got is just all the processing the firewall itself does with the web traffic coming and going. It's not quite keeping up with the bandwidth of our pipe. So our new firewall should be several times faster on that whole thing. And primarily what we're expecting is that it will do a better job of allowing you guys to upload files to us. So when you guys do that save to cloud on your database, it will go about as fast as your, it should go as fast as your pipe is willing to put the data up to us. Well, we'll know more what the speed difference looks like, you know, when it finally happens. The theoretical speed up is up to 3 times. Realistically, though, that's going to rely on how fast you transmit data up on your end of things, and I suspect that's really going to there's going to be less than meets the eye to that one for most people. One thing I would suggest though is do go over and let me go and pull up a way to find out what your own speed is. If you go to a site called speedtest.net. From any computer, and you can do this while you're doing other things, and just go ahead and hit the big go there, and it'll run for a while, and it'll tell you what your modem is doing coming and going on the traffic, and that's a good way of measuring what you're doing out there. Most people have really good speed down, or at least acceptable speed down. In other words, like if you're viewing a movie on Netflix, it does a pretty good job of it, but most, especially the budget internet plans out there, do a really bad job of speed up. On the other hand, if you're one of these lucky guys with symmetrical gigabit fiber, tell me where you live and where I can get fiber in your area, because man, that would solve a lot of problems for us. But no, you just consider yourself very lucky. But no, for most everyone else, it's very common to see plans with, like, you know, yeah, I get 200 megabit download speed, but only 5 megabit up, and that's why your saving to the cloud takes forever when you're saving these large files. We'll at least be doing our part to process those files as fast as you can possibly give them to us, and if you do have a buffer connection, expect that to speed up quite a bit. But if you're only putting up at a couple megs per second, well then that's, you know, whatever the size of the file divided by that megs per second is going to be how long that takes to transmit, and there's not a lot we can do about that. But anyway, not a bad thing to do, and also not a bad thing to do is take the time just with the new year, just like, you know, every year or so it's good to call your insurance company and say, hey, anyway, I can catch a break on this, that, or the other thing. Not a bad idea to go and check your internet plan and say, hey, you know, I see you've rolled out new service in my area, and if I were a new customer, I'd be getting 3 times the speed for the same price. So you want to cut me in on that deal, or should I become someone else's new customer? I have done this pretty much every 2 or 3 years for my entire internet life, and every time it happens, I either save 20-30% or my speed goes up by double. So it's not a bad thing to do. So just throw that out there. All right, let's do a quick check, see how we're doing. Compliment. Compliment asks, I'm curious, what OS are your servers? Are they a Linux derivative? They are, we're Windows based in general on the shop here. We have tons and tons of homebrew stuff going on, but they're Windows derivative, and that's probably all the information I'm going to give out. It's just for security, you know, reasons, based on things. That much you could tell if you knew their IP and just pinged them the right way, or at least, you know, looked at them the right way. But everything else is very much internal. But yeah, no, it's just a hassle. I hate to be cryptic about almost anything, but it's there are so many script kiddies out in the universe where even if I remember standing up our mail server where literally we had told no one that the server existed at all. We were just literally, we fired it up, we were we'd installed the mail client on it, and we were just watching the port traffic as it goes, and it took maybe 20 minutes before the first script kiddie. A script kiddie is just, it's hacker slang for just some idiot who's running pre-run scripts, which are just basically, they're like doing the computer equivalent of auto dialing every number in the phone directory and just seeing what you can find, or running some set of exploits that people who haven't patched their software in 80 years, whatever the thing is, so you can feel like I am Mr. Elite Hackers. You're like a 12-year-old, trying not to get behind on your homework in like 7th grade or whatever the hell. But it's amazing how much just time jerks like that can waste. Just like for all of us who have to answer our phone and there's some suspicious auto-dialed number from our own exchange, or in my case, the old exchange where I used to live in California, where immediately, it's like you just can place a proposition bet at that point. Okay, is it going to be about my extended car warranty, my student loan, my mortgage refinancing, or something else, or will it just be in Spanish? In my case, but you could take a prop bet on that. The one thing it will never be is an actual person you want to talk to. But it's amazing how much time folks like that can waste, and there's a way to just get these guys out of your life. Well worth taking. All right, so moving on. Oro says, delighted with fiber to home in Minneapolis, 500 down and up, 60 a month, 100% reliable. Dude, wow. Yeah, I understand they have fiber in Nashville, which unfortunately is just a little bit outside my zone down here, but I have considered greatly just renting a closet someplace, or just, that might be the reason you simply buy real estate in Nashville, just to, say, okay, yeah, the rest of this can be a rental house, but this one closet that holds our servers is going to be where that goes. I would love to make that happen. But yeah, where we're at right now, we have the max plan that anyone can give us for any amount of money. But we don't get 500 up, I'm afraid. That's a bummer. All right, moving on. All right, so we talked about that. All right, so the rest of it, honestly, I just have questions. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Steven. Said you're only displaying the CV display. Did you want picture-in-picture? That would have been a great idea. Yeah, sorry about that. Another thing I don't want to whine too much about, but probably worth commenting on, is I'm trying to. I had dreams over the break of having a much more polished presentation to start the New Year's off without. We had different animated backgrounds we were rolling with and so forth, and I really wanted to set what's called super source layouts going on, where you've got me over on one side here, and you've got like the big picture I'm talking to, framed up beautifully on the whole thing with nice switching between all the thing. And we've got it partially working. I just couldn't make the whole dance work properly in time for the show. I'm going to be putting more time in with that system as we go forward. But as right now, this is a very stripped down podcast. I'm hoping to dazzle you with our graphics and presentation capability in the days ahead. But I'm hoping that we can just get through this one today. So this is the downside of I don't just do the podcast. As much as I love talking to you guys, every once in a while this software thing that I do also demands a fair amount of my time, and that keeps me from doing the fun stuff sometimes. So yeah, we're soldiering through. We'll get through it. All right. Andre says, says, please, Pete, don't forget that you have to program the scanner to get the extra barcode to scan. Yeah, the barcode scanners, it's funny because back when the world was largely composed of 1D barcode scanners, so 1D, nothing's 1D in our universe really, but 1D scanners really just, it's reading just the lines with spaces between lines. So it's a typical straight up bars, kind of barcode, as opposed to a 2D one, which is like the ones you see on, QR codes. Back when most everything that was in the barcode world was 1D, they had a lot more control in the scanners over how to handle scans of things like of like additional supplementals and things like that. That was much more common. It seems like what's happened is as more of the world has switched towards QR codes, especially for things like, let's say you go to a concert and you've got that ticket web ticket on your phone, right? So it's a CCD scanner as well. all the energy amongst the vendors has been towards making that that QR stuff work, and adding on cute features for that sort of thing. And the 1D stuff has really languished to the point where it feels like, at least for the dozen or so vendors we've looked at, a lot of the features that were absolutely standard before, which is one of them is, in our case, the ability to force a 2 or a 5-digit supplemental to be there. They just it was inconceivable to us that was ever a feature you would ever not have, and now we're finding vendor after vendor after vendor that not only doesn't have it, but does a really rotten job of locating the supplemental without forcing it. So the opposite of the force supplemental is a setting you would typically call something like auto discriminate supplemental. In other words, if you see it, great. If you don't see it, great. But take what you've got. And it feels like the tech is really taking a step backwards on that. But yeah, no, trust me, we have definitely looked for that setting, and we've demanded that setting. We've had heated arguments, over that setting, but it's surprisingly hard to get someone who's executing on that the way we'd want, with especially wireless solutions. So yeah, we're working on it. That's all I can say. All right. All right, let's see here. And people are comparing drinks. All right, man, I'm getting jealous about everyone's drink right now. All right, cool. All right, moving on. So the rest of the show, honestly, I want to just handle some questions on. If we finish up early, we will finish up early. But if not, please fire your questions off the show. I'll hit as many as I can. First question came in from a different Greg. Says basically, I ran ComicBase earlier this week, and it said updating pricing years when I checked for an update. What is that all about? What that is about, my friend, is the ComicBase, and now I'm going to switch over here, and I'm going to try to remember to put the picture on. Let's see how we did. All right, yeah, there we go. So ComicBase, by default, if you have the Pro or Archive editions, is going to have 4 pricing years. And those are going to be called, it's whatever the last 4 years were. So this one, you can tell it has not updated the pricing years on it, because it's still using last year's data on this one. But the pricing years are going to be, whatever the last 4 years were. When you see it say updating pricing years, what it's doing is it's taking whatever year 4's data was, moving it down to year 3, moving it actually goes in reverse order. It takes years 2's data, moves it to year 1, moves years 3's data, moves it to year 2, moves year 4's data, moves to number 3, and then year 4 becomes a copy initially of what the old one was, but then it becomes called 2022. In that way, if I'd picked any comic book that I'd actually updated the pricing years on, and which had moved it all, you would see this graph essentially roll down as we go. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting about this one is the data in ComicBase is set up so, we for the last million years, we've had it set so that every issue has the 4 fields for the last 4 years' price. But what really is going on in that one is we're just storing 4 different values, and we roll them as we go. As soon as it knows that you're using it on a new calendar year, then it does that mechanic where it shuffles everything down and opens up the one for the new year. The problem on that one, though, is, it'd be great. A lot of us have ComicBase for a very long time. It'd be great. Well, what happens to the older data, right? Well, the answer is in your personal database, it goes away. There's only room for 4. For us to open it up to have room for 20 or whatever else, because that data is stored for every issue in the database, your database file would just get huge. And honestly, that's not great. I mean, the database file is already pushing a gigabyte right now. It's a gig and change if you haven't optimized it lately. And so, I mean, that's not a great. You don't want to have that thing just get big and slow and clunky by storing infinity years worth of data in the database. I think what a happier solution, and we expect to see this probably rolling out this year, is to have an automatic link in the database on your copy to view longer price histories. And honestly, we can potentially store more detailed price histories, because right now we only store 1 value per year. But what if the data changed 16 times for a comic book for the same issue within the same year? Right? You don't want to store all those data points in your database, but on the other hand, we've got big servers, and so if you want to simply link to our database and see all the price movements over all the time that we know that this issue's been around and that we've been tracking price movements on, that's something that we're storing it on our end, and that we can increasingly we're hoping to make that available in a way that's convenient and makes some kind of sense. That's probably going to be a feature you see us roll out this year. I'm just going to speculate because it's something we've definitely been spending on the back end. We've been spending some time making happen. So, but in your own database, 4 years, it gives you, we chose 4 because it was just enough points to make a somewhat interesting line, bar graph or line graph. So you could actually have something go up and then go down again, or up, down, up, or whatever else. I mean, it was enough to at least make an interesting shape. And so with 3 points, you can't get there. 2 points is just silly. 5 points, you're starting to get to the point where we're starting to worry about our file sizes, and so on beyond that. But so we'll probably be keeping it 4 in the database itself, but I do want to see the ability to have infinite points of data that you can link to that are referencing our servers. So stay tuned. We'll look at that going forward. All right, let's do a quick check here. Sorry, I'm doing a quick check for @ComicBase TVs. Okay, so let's see here. Oro says, let me turn off the picture-in-picture so I can get this up on the screen. Oh yeah, here we go. Oro says a number of popular magazines are employing a cost-saving strategy of issuing double issues. For instance, recent indicia at ComicBase TV. I can't see the rest of that one, but analog. Sorry, another one got in between. Analog science fiction, fact astounding, blah blah blah, numbers, January, February, etc. Thoughts on how the handle data entry, auto numbering, etc. Please. For double issues, what we typically done when people have done that, a lot of times when the magazine isn't doing great, what'll happen is they'll slip publication. They'll say, well, here's all the stuff we were gonna put in the one issue, and now it's a double issue, right? Usually if they're doing this all the time and it's not part of their publishing schedule, it really means that something's going wrong. Just inside baseball, it means something's going wrong in the head office. In other words, they couldn't line up the cover feature, they couldn't, line up the main story. The distribution fell through. Something happened that typically, for instance, magazines won't go hit the street. They won't get printed unless the ad support is at a certain level. Different magazines will have different equations built into them. For instance, Comics Buyer's Guide was meant to be something like 85 or 80% ads, and so you would print as many pages as you had ads for. So if you didn't have X many ads, then you cut the pages out. And if you ever fell beyond a point where you couldn't print the main feature, the main editorial, the main column that everyone expects, if you didn't have enough ads for that much, you didn't print the issue. That happens at every magazine. So it could be that it requires X many cycles to get the number of pages together to make the whole thing happen. So it's meant to be an irregular thing. When this happens, I think the best thing we're doing is probably just to say, okay, issue 602 is a double issue for January, February, and then 604, is either the next regular issue or it's the double issue with the month after that, until the thing either stops, which if that stuff keeps up, usually happens pretty quickly, or they'll switch to bi-monthly, they'll switch to 8 times a year, they'll switch to 12 times a year, whatever the thing is. You'll either see typically a publishing change in the magazine, or you'll see the magazine stop altogether if this nonsense keeps happening. But for right now, I would just say, yeah, there's going to be a discontiguous numbering in the whole thing. Not as big a deal with magazines. As you guys know, what we'll typically do with magazines is as opposed to comic books. Comic books are typically 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, or 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, etc. But I mean, they're typically sequential. With magazines, we had to make the decision. Let me go ahead and pull one up. Let's see, analog. That's analog. The comic book, analog computing. Sure, why not? Let's just do that one. Okay, let's switch over to there. Oh, wrong one. That's my overhead. All right. So here's analog computing. And this is a terrible example of this one. All right, let's go for People. Now, I don't like this one because it's going to be it's going to be a huge magazine. Oh my goodness. People Commemorative Editions, People Collections Editions. Was it just called People Weekly? Learned how to type, Bickford. People Weekly. That's the actual magazine. So Give me a moment while the whole darn thing loads up. All right, so here we are with number 1, featuring Mia Farrow on the cover. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you'll notice once we get down to issue 17, the next issue is 201. Well, what happened to 18 through 200? Well, the answer is, with magazines, we adopted... let me go ahead and zoom in with this one so you can actually see. Zoom's not working. Of course not. All right, welcome to the new year. What happens is we've adopted TV season styling numbering. So, in other words, if we think the thing could go 52 issues in a year, then the next issue is going to be 200 plus whatever the episode number is. So this essentially is season 2 or volume 2 is 201 in this case. Then it's going to go up to season 3. So for 301 is volume 1, 3, number 1. So it's normal to have skips in magazines like that. When you start out and you were expecting it to be issue let's say that a magazine, let's say something happened with 222, and it was going to become a forced double issue. Well, then the publisher has one of two choices they can make on it. They can either say this is a special double issue of People magazine number 222 featuring the Johnny Carsons. I didn't know there was more than one, but hey, so there you go. In which case, it could encompass 223, in which case, just call it 222. We'll have a note that says includes issue 223, special double issue, and then we will not list 223. There'll just be a skip there. And then they will decide that, if they do that, then the next issue is either going to be called Volume 2, Number 24, or it'll be called Volume 2, Number 23. It's up to the publisher. Whatever they choose, we're just going to note what was different about it in the notes, but stick all of your data in the first issue, I guess is what it comes down to. And don't worry that there's a skip, because that's, here we go, double, 227, right down there. Double December 30th through January 6, 1975. So 227. So there might have been a 228, except there wasn't. And so the next one just picked up at 301. Just there you go. That's exactly what happened with People. So basically, don't worry about it too much. It comes out in the wash. Is kind of what I guess my response to that would be. All right, moving on. Check in the chat. What else do we have? Do I think? Compliment asked. Do I think that QR codes might replace UPC codes for comics? I'm going to say not a chance in hell. I wistfully thought, man, that would solve a lot of problems for us if it did. I mean, one thing is it would cause us to have to, sell everyone a new scanner because, everyone who's got they refer to them in the trades as like supermarket style scanners or a 1D scanner. Those won't read 2D scans. So yay, we could sell everyone a new scanner. Boo, on the other hand, pain in the butt for everybody. It would solve, if they did that, it would solve our encoding problems, for QR, as far as being able to read supplementals. But realistically though, there are a trillion POS systems built into supermarkets and automated checkout lines and everything else that's meant to sell a consumer item like a comic book or a can of soup or whatever else, and every single last one of those is expecting a 1D scan. They're not expecting a QR code, and they don't know what to do with one if they see it. And the first idiot who sticks a QR code on their can of Coke or their issue of Time magazine or something else like that, all he's going to do is piss off. He's going to get letters nonstop from everyone up and down the supply chain saying we can't do anything with this. And so I don't see it happening unless there's just some huge need for it. And I don't think there's a huge need. So QR codes, I mean, the 2D codes that we get them on lots of things these days. They used to be first used, I think I first saw them on mail. But if you ever actually get a 2D scanner and you hit one of those and you just pull up Notepad and you see what's in the QR codes, like on your driver's license or your hotel room key, or if you go to a convention, your badge or whatever else, typically it'll be this massive amount of information. It'll be like your name, your address, your phone number, all your contact info, which is why that, like, when you say you go to a trade show and people are scanning your badge, what they're doing right there is they're downloading all that information to their local system because it's all in your badge. It's all in those that grid of dots you've got going on. Oh, by the way, if you guys want something, if you guys are really into puzzles and let me see if I can find this. See if I can find this story. I want to. All right, so give me just a second. QR code. Yep, here we go. All right, so, yeah, so what someone has done is they've made, and apparently we just missed the first run of this one. They've made a puzzle, and yeah, the $1 million puzzle by MSCHF. If you have way too much time on your hand and you really love you some jigsaw puzzles, and you would have to solve this one by brute forcing it. There's no other bloody way. Some guys came up with the idea of, we're gonna put a puzzle out there. We'll sell the puzzles themselves for, you know, $25 each or whatever it is. But inside each one of those is a redemption code, which if you put your redemption code together with the unique puzzle that you've got, and it will not be the same as the box shot. Unfortunately, everyone thinks about trying that. It does not work. But if you put those two things together and you've solved the puzzle, it enters you into a prize drawing, which I guess the top prize is $1 million. The bottom prize is like a quarter or something, you know, not a quarter of a million, like 25 cents. Yeah. But the top prize, and I guess they gave it away, is $1 million. So basically what you're doing is you're kind of buying a lottery ticket, plus you're having a really tedious puzzle night. But if you hit this whole thing with your phone or a QR scanner, it gives you like a web redemption URL. You match that with the one inside your box. If you got a match, then boom, you're in the contest and so forth. But yeah, I guess it worked, and I guess they're doing another one starting in a little bit. But yeah, that's a thing if you're really into this sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. All right, that's probably all I got to say about the QR codes. We'll move on. All right, coming back on that. All right. Let's see here. Merge sales possibility. Okay. Okay. If this were CB1 merge cells, yeah. Okay, I don't know if I have a lot more to add to your question on that, Oro, so I'm gonna let that one go. If there's more, please follow up with me. Okay. Stephen Dazzler says, do you have time to talk about publisher names? Why only use part of it, and special handling of title names, article placement, the L, Disney's, etc. You know, honestly, that's a great topic. Let me get together with the editorial folks and make sure that I'm speaking the official party line on that one. We're a small company, but I don't rule all areas. I don't know if you guys are like this in your own marriages or something like that. It's like there are times when like you're like, yeah, you're the boss of this end of life, you know. So even if you're the owner of the company, you don't try to do everyone's work for them all the time, and you try to hire really good folks who really know their stuff. And because they're living it day to day, you know, they are way more in touch with the data than you'll ever be in that area. So when they have an issue they need to escalate up to you, you can obviously talk about it and come up with an official position. But for me to just announce an official position unless I've just talked to them, there's a chance I'm just going to say something stupid, you know, and which, you know, they will have to then live with. So because I haven't had this conversation with them ahead of time, let me get to them, and then I'll try to pass on what we all conclude on that one. Because I imagine that they've got very firm ideas for how publishers and articles and things like that ought to go. I imagine I will probably concur with what that decision is, or if we do need to shape it in some way, we'll get on one page and then we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's one where, yeah, I'm not going to step on those particular toes because I don't know that end of the field as well as they do. So I'm just going to step out of it for the moment. But I will bring it up with them and staff, and we'll have a chat offline if we need to, and then I'll try to come back to it next week. All right, let's see here. Greg asks, any update on when magazine book inventory will be browsable like comics in individual Atomic Avenue stores? This shit's been hanging around for a while now. I know it's very high on the list for the Atomic Avenue revs for the next major system rev that they are looking to do. Beyond that, I don't know a schedule on that one, but I know that I've seen like kind of the roadmap that they're looking for on that, and I know that's right up there at the top. So I would expect it sooner rather than later, but beyond that, I couldn't say. All Let's see here. Are the book and Tim asks, are the book and magazine categories mainly for comic-related items, or will the database grow to include more types? They're going to inevitably grow to include more types. We kind of starting from the kind of collections that all of us geeks tend to have, and so it was the spillover from that, and so all of our art books fell out of comic books and they became the books. Our reference books on comics became the book section, but then it became things like art portfolios and sci-fi books and pulp books and things like that, and that inevitably shades and grows into other things. Like, I imagine amongst the main ComicBase audience, there's not a huge number of People magazine subscribers. However, and it's funny because one just came in just the other day. The People magazine cover that came in right at the end of the year with Betty White. Betty White turns 100, which turns out they jumped the gun on that by like a day. They obviously had a publishing date they had to meet, and there was every reason in the world to believe that she'd make it the next week, but she didn't. So they just did the Dewey defeats Truman headline. They just did that version for popular celebrities in People magazine. So then the next day, it turns out that issue of People magazine with the mistaken Betty White turns 100 cover on it, because she was the most celebrated celebrity death probably of last year, because she died right at the end of the year. That magazine suddenly the next day was trading for $30 on eBay, and I think there's some like 6 million of them printed. It was some crazy number, but anyway, yes, there is a collectible thing, but it starts from where we were at in terms of like comics and geeky guys and what they collect, but it inevitably spreads out to other things, and I think we're just going to let it spread organically. We're not going to go to the start of every comic or book that have ever happened and try to be Amazon, but I think we'll do as people submit things and we start indexing things that come through the pop culture channels, it's just going to grow, and we'll take it from there. I'm really curious. I've never heard a number credible or incredible as to the number of magazines that have ever been published in, say, America, of magazine issues, distinct magazine issues. I'd be shocked if it were less than 1 million, but yeah, it's funny because we're starting, in the short time that we've been doing this, we're starting to do some real damage in that category in terms of like covering a lot of, like I'll watch old movies and so I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, that guy's reading a copy of Time magazine from 1955. I can actually pull that cover up in the database and see when it hit the streets and why the prop department used that in that old movie or so forth. So yeah, it's going to be kind of cool. I like that that's coming about, and it's coming about again organically because of you guys, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. T-shirt weather and tin PDX, nice. All right, ComicBase TV, what is the policy on signed items? I was recently told TV doesn't include items about COAs, but signed limited editions have been there for a very long time. Yeah, the rule isn't so much about COAs as it is it has to form an edition of some sort. In other words, here I'm just going to grab a random object. Yes, I have a copy of Billy Idol's Cyberpunk album. Right now, we don't track CDs in the database currently, but if we did, the question would come up. It's like, well, would we have, do we have the regular edition? Do we have the deluxe edition? Do we have the expanded collector's edition? Or that one where I happen to bump into Billy Idol or his guitarist or some roadie in the band, and I just got it signed. The first 3 of those are trackable in a database. I mean, as a general matter. I mean, you certainly could add the last of them, with the one where like you bump into his roadie and he signed the CD for you. The problem is it doesn't make any sense for us to try to track it because there's an infinite number of those that could have happened. It could have been signed by anybody under any circumstances for any reason, and it doesn't make sense for us to try to database them. It's an impossible task. On the other hand, if they announce that, let's pick somebody who's actually in comics. Who's the Umbrella Academy guy? Gerard, the guy from This Chemical Gerard Way, This Chemical Romance. If he sits there and says, "Look, I'm doing a signing of Umbrella Academy #1, or number 6 million A, sketch cover, and I'm going to put this out through Dynamic Forces." Excuse me, someone forgot to silence the phones. That would be me. Sorry guys, new year. I'm bound to make some mistakes. Anyway, but if Gerard Way goes and puts out a limited edition of these sorts of things, at that point he says, yeah, there's going to be 50 of them. I'm going to sign and number them. Wow. I don't know what. Okay, so someone's just, I'm just dumping the phone now. Okay, done and done. What? You're kidding me. Samsung has now added, you now need biometrics to turn off your phone. Hell with that, guys. All right, anyway. Back to Gerard Way in the mythical Umbrella Academy. If he sits there and says, yeah, I'm going to do an edition of 50, we're selling them through Dynamic Forces, whether or not he includes a certificate of authenticity or not, or simply writes 3 of 50 and so forth, that is something that we could database, right? Because then at least we know it happened, we know there's a set number of them, we could start tracking the value of them and so forth. But if it's just for like, I bumped into Gerard Way at the concert, he happened to sign my copy, it's worth whatever it's worth. I couldn't tell you if it's real or it's not real. It's a great thing to put in your own database, but it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to send to us because we can't do anything with it. So that's kind of our policy on those ones. So it, like I say, it has to form some sort of edition, not just be a one-off. So okay. All right. Doug says, new feature under view, show add wanted items. Question for Doug. How would that be different than just find wanted items? Because if I say find item fields wanted, doesn't that give you what you want, or are you looking to see that title by title? Which I think you. Well, I mean. It's a great question. Let me know. It might be an interesting thing to play with. But yeah, write me some more details on that one, and share me your thoughts on that one. I'd be curious to know what you're thinking on that one. Greg points out reference signed and numbered editions. Yeah, signed and numbers is fine. Kickstarter editions where like if I pledged $100 for Chuck Dixon's latest whatever, and he's going to do a signed and numbered edition of 50 of them, even whether they don't include a certificate or not. Yeah, at least again it formed an edition, so we could track that. We could tell you what it costs. We could tell you we could start tracking what they go for and so forth. It's just I can't do anything with item number 43. Just on, or actually, I mean, I can't do something with just like Chuck happened to sign my comic, or somebody claiming to be Chuck happened to sign my comic. But if you ever solicited it as an edition, I can do something with it. All right, so yeah, I hope we're okay. Let's see what else we're doing here. when that music plays, it's like the Academy Orchestra telling you to get off the stage. Yeah, it could be. Maybe we'll wrap it up about now. Yeah. So Greg's saying there was a discussion on the ComicBase message boards re Doug McCrack's queue, and the word came back that only COAs and not signed number would be tracked in the database. If they came from one of our guys, we'll have a chat about it. We can chat about that while we're talking about articles, and I think we can refine the position because, I'm just, if they've got a strong reason for that, then I'd like to hear it, and if so, I'll broadcast another way on that one. It's that danger of getting out ahead of your own folks. But my own personal thing is, I know we can't do anything with rando stuff. Just if it's just I happen to get my stuff signed, I can't do anything with it. If there's an editorial reason why it needs to have a certificate to be tracked, then I'd like to hear why. That hasn't come up, but I know we can't do anything with random stuff. But it would seem to me, at least, that if there was a signed edition, and it was actually at the $50 tier, you get this one and it's signed, and it was solicited that way. It seems to me that that's a usable thing. But yeah, I think we'll bring that one up at our next content meeting, and we'll get an official standard on that one, and we'll move on. The expanded edition is a floppy with cyberpunk visuals. Yeah, could be. All right, so all right. Well, I think that'll probably do us for now. One thing I did want to hit. I got this one requested earlier on. We had some. There was a question about some preliminary. I'm downloading images. I don't have preliminary pics checked, but I'm getting some images that are clearly preliminary pics. What's going on? And we did find at least a little data. You know, as we're going through the 20,000 corrections we got over a single weekend last weekend, I am seeing that there's somebody has a source of data. I'm not sure. It's not one of our typical ones. So when we're ingesting, say, the diamond list, or when our guys are doing our own indexing and the publishers are sending us preliminary items, we get them the image and we size it at an exact size, 505 by 725. So it's either going to wind up being 505 wide or it's going to wind up being 7025 tall, depending on its aspect ratio. It might be both. But one of those two things will be true of the image if we saw that it was coming in as a preliminary image, and we'll stamp it on the side with a little, the words preliminary image along the side in a little faint type, just so you know it's not the official cover. But we are seeing some images being sent to us that are like, they're odd sizes, so they're not that size. They're not coming from us directly, but they're not the final image of the cover. In other words, they're coming in with like partial trade dress, but like not the UPC or something like that. Honestly, I don't know where they're coming from directly. I'm not certain of it right now. We need to trace that back and find a way of dealing with that however they're doing it. Because there's a new player in the game somewhere. It's not us. That is circulating preliminary images of some sort, and we need to find out if there's a way we can cap that off. Because if you submit them as if they're the real cover and they look real enough to us, and it's just we don't know that there's some final bit of trade stuff that will be on the real thing, which isn't later. The way I was noticing it when I was doing the correction this weekend is I'd see the same cover come through later on at a much larger size because it was somebody's real scan, and I'd be like, wait, am I replacing a virgin one or a limited trade dress one or where else? It's like, no, if there's somebody who's been submitting these prelim versions. Unfortunately, it was disconnected enough in time at that point when we were under such a mountain of new data. I couldn't tell who had submitted the original cover that we were replacing. But we're going to start keeping an eye on that one, and we'll try to take steps to make sure we handle that a little bit better. We'd like to get them sized in a way that we can quickly differentiate them as preliminary, if that's indeed what they are. If you are that person, somehow, whoever's listening to this, and you are submitting those ones, please get in touch with us at support@comicbase.com. Let's figure out how to work together in a way that's smooth for everybody, so that again, your data gets used, but it gets used in a way that the people who want to avoid preliminary stuff don't need to mess around with it. All right, well, I think that's about it. Let me see. Is there anything else we need? All right. All right, and Doug, like I said, let's chat a little later, Doug, as far as specific format of things. If you could send me a note at pbickford@human-computing.com. Let's talk about how you'd like to see that displayed, and I'll tell you if it could be done. All right, I think that will do it for now. Lance says, I blame dynamic forces for this whole discussion. Maybe they were one of the people who started it, but man, they're certainly not the only player these days. There's so many people who are in this game right now, and honestly, it's only, as we've seen from signed copies and limited copies and variant copies, there's no end to this game. Anytime you can take a random thing and make it seem unique, you have a potential of making more money on it. And so if the only thing it takes to make this Billy Idol not be $2.95 from McKay's, which, by the way, the Billy Idol Cyberpunk album, if you guys remember Billy Idol from the 80s, you're thinking, right? Holy crap, actually good. What a surprise. But yeah, no, so $2.95 at McKay's. But if, if Steve Stevens had happened to scribble on the cover or draw a picture of a guitar or whatever else on it, it took him a minute and a half and suddenly it's a $50 collectible. As long as you can do that with a minute and a half worth of effort, you're going to keep doing that. So, anyway, yeah, don't expect an end to this discussion. I expect to evolve. But yeah, we'll take it from there. All right, guys. Well, I think I'll do it for now. Thank you very much, and we'll chat with you next time. And I will again follow up on some of those action items with my staff, and we'll try to get you some definitive word on that. You guys have a good one. See you then. Bye.